Hello HEMA friends and welcome to this new episode of our Longsword Guides series. Today we are going to give a look to Posta Longa. Posta Longa is more important as a posta rather than a guard, simply because it is a position that we end up reaching a lot of the time during our fighting. Posta Longa is a situation that we reach while attacking, while feinting, especially of course while thrusting, and so on. Maestro Fiore tells us that there are 5 different thrusts. Posta Longa represents 3 of these thrusts, the center one and the lower left and the right opposition, the lower left and right thrusting position. While talking about thrusting position, of course, I refer to the position that we end up reaching while thrusting. Maestro Fiore also tells us that this posta is full of falsità, which easily translates in feints. It is a posta extremely useful to deliver feints. Among these tricky actions, there is the ability of voiding the opponent's blows or cuts directed to the blade itself to beat it aside, to deliver again an offensive action. This kind of concept is referred to in future manuals as Cavazione in tempo. Very good, let's now give a look to the main offensive actions of Posta Longa.
The main offensive action of Posta Longa is, of course, the thrust. Posta Longa is the ending position of many thrusts, and it also represents 2 of the 4 thrusts with opposition, namely the lower ones. Thrusting can be done by reaching Posta Longa from other guards, some of which we have already analyzed. Posta di Donna and Porta di Ferro are just a couple of examples. The thrust can come from Posta Longa itself, of course, for example during a Cavazione or a Cavazione in tempo, as we will learn soon. In this way, the actual offensive component of the action starts and ends in Posta Longa. Another great feature of Posta Longa are its feints. It is possible to feint by reaching Posta Longa with a feinted thrust, meant to trigger the defensive patterns of the opponent. Once the defense is triggered, another action can be landed in the newly formed opening. These kind of tactics may take a variety of forms and variations of them, the most popular of which are the Cavazione, by reaching Posta Longa and then voiding the opponent parry with a circular motion, landing another thrust from there, or the more straightforward feinted thrust and cut to another opening. Various cuts can be landed at the different targets which opens up, by transitioning through other poste, depending from the situation.
So, as you have seen, the main offensive actions of Posta Longa are the thrusts with or without opposition, and of course its falsità or feints, which are delivered by reaching Posta Longa as a transitional positions meant to feint a thrust and then deliver another action. Let's now give a look to what Fiore was referring for while talking about voiding the opponent actions, of course delivered to the blade, and then landing an attack, which, as I mentioned before, is now called Cavazione in tempo.
The concept of the Cavazione in tempo is pretty simple. When the opponent tries to control our blade with a beat, or in certain specific cases also with a more refined binding action, we use the tempo granted by the opponent controlling action to void it and land our own attack. It is crucial to remember that the controlling action of the opponent may be delivered by itself or instantly followed by an attack. This has to be always kept in mind while landing the Cavazione in tempo. The Cavazione in tempo may easily be landed in a couple of forms, the first one being with our standard half a circle movement. This is generally more useful to deliver thrusts. The other option is what in a more modern Italian fencing vocabulary is referred to as Cavazione angolata. Angolata means at an angle, probably referring to this angle described by the blade while voiding the opponent one. The Cavazione angolata is pretty simple. Void the controlling action of the opponent by pulling the blade away, and then deliver a cut on roughly the same line. Notice that the difference between a Cavazione landed following a feint and the Cavazione angolata differs from one another for a simple motivation. While feinting, the initiative is yours from the beginning. While landing a Cavazione in tempo instead, the initiative is held or being contested by the opponent.
As you have seen, this action is extremely useful when we are in Posta Longa and the opponent tries to target our weapon with the idea of beating it aside to free the line, to free the road, let's say, to attack us. We use this tempo to deliver our offensive action. We void the opponent beat and we land our thrust in the tempo that we have gained. Remember to control the opponent weapon after landing the thrust, either by opposing your blade after thrusting or by parrying the opponent fighter action if it happens. All these actions are extremely useful while applying another concept that Maestro Fiore tells us. Maestro Fiore tells us that Posta Longa is also extremely useful to scout the opponent guards. He uses the word tastare, so like touching in a certain sense the opponent guards. So scouting the opponent's guards and see which one are the movements, the defensive reactions of the opponent. Which means that we have to use our Posta Longa, reaching our Posta Longa as a mean to threaten the opponent, scout the opponent for his defensive reactions, and then create a plan on top of what we learned. By scouting the opponent for their defensive or offensive patterns, we can create our plan on top of the things we have learned, and then easily land our Cavazione in tempo if the opponent goes for a beat and attack, for example, or our feint if the opponent tends to parry our action. Of course, we have to be extremely careful while landing our scouting actions, especially if we want to learn the offensive patterns of the opponent, because we may gift to them the tempo to attack us and land their own action. So, we have learned that our Posta Longa is extremely useful to thrust, to land scouting actions, and on top of these scouting actions we can deliver our feints and our Cavazione in tempo. We have also to remember that being our Posta Longa, a situation that we reach while fighting, while delivering thrusts, it is extremely useful to exchange thrusts and also land oppositions from whatever guard to whatever of the variations of Posta Longa that we have seen. A simple example is attacking Posta Longa from Posta di Donna. We are landing our fendente, which lands by reaching our Posta Longa, which lands an opposition on top of the opponent Posta Longa. Very good, let's now give a look to the glossa of Posta Longa, and of course I will translate it for you. Very good, so as always, glasses on and let's go. Posta Longa si è questa, piena di falsità. So this is Posta Longa, which is full of falsità, which is like trickery, feints. Ella va tastando le guardie che lo compagno può ingannare. So this posta is going to tastare, which is like touching in a sense, but don't think too much about binding, because every time we have this kind of words, everyone is like about binding, but you can only touch another Posta Longa basically, and of course he's talking about guards or the other guardie, and he's referring to the act of scouting for the opponent movement. So Posta Longa is able to touch, to scout the other guards and learn what these guards are going to do. Se ella può ferire de punta, lo sa ben fare. egli colpi la schiva e può fieri, ella lo può fare. So this guard of course can land thrusts, can hurt the opponent with the punta, the thrust, and she can also void the opponent, he says, blows, cuts, and deliver an attack, fury the opponent, so hurt the opponent. Of course, this is the actions that we have seen, which are the thrust, of course, the simple thrust, and every actions which land in a thrust, and also the cavazione in tempo, which is more specific actions that he describes later. Più che le altre guardie, le falsità sa usare. So this is a rather short glossa. He says that, again, more than the other guards, this guard is able to use falsità, so feints. So it is very good to deliver like cavazioni, feinting with a cavazione, or stuff like that. Everything that we have seen in this video, and even more to an extent by using all this concept with all the possible variations, connecting blows, thrusts, etc., etc. Very good, people. We are at the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you will find it useful in some ways. Remember that if you want to help this channel grow up, and if you want to help me too, you can check the Patreon page, link in the description, where you can find also a lot of exclusive contents available for my patrons. Thanks for watching as always, and see you next time.